Welcome to the Bound to be Rich podcast, where I attempt to reverse engineer people who seem to be successful no matter the circumstances so that you can apply those lessons to your own life. I'm your host, Ismail Humet. In this episode, we are joined by Jontay Porter, a professional NBA player with the Memphis Grizzlies, who was secretly also a very successful options trader. We talk about mental strength and how it's important for everything from overcoming a sports injury to becoming a profitable trader. Jontay recently turned $50,000 into $200,000 in 3 days. He's also grown $5,000 into $100,000 in the past, so he's got a proven track record. He now even has hundreds of other traders following him. We get into what he's learned from trading and his advice to all the beginners that are getting into the market right now. We also get into a bunch of other stuff like Bitcoin, the importance of investing in general, and what really creates a fulfilling life. Let's dive in. Jontay, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
I guess you're most known for being a basketball player, but I'll be totally honest with you, man. I had no idea you were an NBA player. I actually was following you mostly for your trading, so kudos to you for being multi-talented.
Yeah, man. That's really honestly most of my followers. I kind of wanted to keep it that way too, just because, I don't really advertise it on my main social medias, and kind of just let my crowd develop naturally just from trading. It's just something I love doing. So it's like two different worlds, honestly.
Why'd you decide to separate it? Is it just because you wanted to like earn a trading following, like not because you're famous, just because you're a good trader?
Yeah, honestly, that was mostly it. And I've never really liked to use my basketball platform to gain anything, and I felt like that kind of be cheating my way through the process of trading. And you see all these guys with tons of followers and cult like followings, and not that that's who I aspire to be or anything. I just want to help people with my free time, but I didn't want to do that by basically inviting non financial people to hop on over to my trading Twitter just because they get to interact with me. You know what I mean? I just wanted it to be people that were in that world already.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that you take that as a big compliment because, like I said, I had no idea. And when,
Yeah.
when I saw, when I saw that, I was like, wow, this guy sounds interesting. He's got a whole career that's really demanding, and he's still good at trading. Because I saw some numbers that backed up that you were good. But if you don't mind, I have to ask some questions about basketball because if I don't, people will yell at me.
Of
But
course.
I promise I'll segue, and you'll see where I go with this. But
No, it's not like it's offensive or anything. Go ahead. Whatever you want to ask, man.
just a couple general questions because I know, like even me, I always dreamed about being an NBA player, hitting the game-winning shot. You know, a lot of kids dream of that, but I'm curious, like once you get there, what's it really like? Like, what does it really take to make it? Because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been blessed immensely with natural gifts that not a lot of people are blessed with, like height and, just the athletic capabilities. But it is a lot of hard work. And like you said, a lot of people have the dream to make it, and only so many people do. So for me to have made it, that's kind of like fulfilling a lifelong dream. Obviously, I still have aspirations within this world, but to have made it is a big accomplishment, and it's a lot different than what you think. And it's it's really grueling. It's a long season. This season in particular is a little bit different just because of our current circumstances, but it's a grueling season, and within that, you still have a lot of free time because, yeah, you're working out a lot. You have games almost every other day, but you have all this free time, and it's like that's what separates good from great players is what they decide to do with that free time. So, luckily, I've had a lot of free time to trade lately because I'm still dealing with a little knee injury and haven't been playing or anything, but that's going to change pretty soon. And no matter what I'm doing with that free time, as long as I'm being productive, I feel like at the end of the day, I can rest my head at night knowing I got better in some area. So that's really, yeah. I mean, it's just a crazy world. It's not a 9 to 5, but it kind of feels like it sometimes. With you're either at the gym doing basketball or you're at home, slacking. But there's a lot you can do with that free time.
You mentioned other aspirations. Like, what kind of aspirations do you have?
Yeah, I mean, really, I just want to better myself in every area, and I have a lot of interests, a lot of hobbies, trading being one of them. Um, my aspiration is just to be great, I feel like, and when I'm at home and I just have an urge to just sit at home, watch Netflix or play video games, like, yeah, that's fun and it's fulfilling, but I feel like when I go to bed at night, I'm just not happy with myself for that day. So every day I try to get better at something, and I don't have like major, end all be all goals because I don't think those are fulfilling. Like I'm not like I need to be MVP of the league or I want to make $1 billion from trading. It's not like that because I think those are just temporary goals, and once you get them, you'll have a feeling of emptiness. For me, I just want to get better at whatever I do that day, even if it's just 1%. Those things will add up, and I can look back 5 years in the future, look back to now, and see that growth.
I totally relate to that. I think maybe it's also not good sometimes because I'm so obsessed with like being productive and getting better. Like my wife always tells me, like, you got to calm down, man. Just take a breath,
Yeah,
enjoy life. But for whatever reason, I guess I don't know. It seems like you relate. I have that in me where I just feel like I'm wasting time if I'm not improving or learning or doing something.
yeah, and even if it's not necessarily being 100% active 100% of the time, I think that's what life is all about: is getting better at something, seeing improvement, and if you're not doing that, then like basically using the fruit of your labors and enjoying life. And I think your wife has a point. Like life's all about experiences, and when I'm not working towards getting better at something, I like to enjoy life doing natural stuff like going outside or going to the park, whatever, hanging out with my dog. But I feel most lazy and like unproductive when I'm just playing video games or watching shows. That's really the times that kind of make me feel like ask myself what I'm doing with my life, really. Not to get too deep because it is just video games.
Yeah,
Those are
no,
fine.
no. We
But
we can get deep. I like that too.
yeah,
I actually, a lot of people that listen to this podcast, it's about like the name is bound to be rich. So it's people that feel different than their friends. They feel like they're a little weird, like they're destined for more. And I find it's hard for them to relate to their friends because a lot of their friends, like all they want to do is talk about video games and sports and stuff
right,
like that. They're not really focused on like getting better or listening to podcasts, reading, like learning about trading. They're just kind of chilling,
right.
which is fine, I guess. I mean, who are we to judge? But I agree with you that you want to give back and help and get better instead of just like consuming and taking things in and not doing anything.
Yeah, it's really just I think a good word for that is complacency, and how you said kind of just chilling. That's really the thing that scares me most. Because it's okay to enjoy the fruit of your labor, but if you really are just chilling and watching other people be great at what they do, I think that's when you're in trouble. So I like the name of your podcast, though. That's great. Great meaning too.
Thank you, man. What are some things that most people don't know? Like, what are some things that people who dream about being in a professional league, like they'd be surprised to hear?
Shoot, I think there's so many different things. I mean, let me think of one thing. I guess one thing would be well, that's such a subjective answer, but for me personally, I thought, and this is kind of when I realized, like, when I had this total mindset shift of I got to be doing something to better myself or have, these goals, whatever. Because I feel like I thought once I got here, everything would be great. Like, I'd have money, I'd be happy, I could really have whatever I want. And yeah, that's true, but that's not like happiness, I feel like. And you got to do something else. You got to have different goals, different hobbies, whatever. And I think if you don't, you're left sad. And that's why you see so many NBA players speaking out now about mental health stuff. It can really be a drag because people think you just have a perfect life. You have everything you ever wanted. And materialistically wise, yeah, you do, but that's not really happiness. I think a lot of people that aren't here think if they did have what we had, they'd be perfectly happy with life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the grass always looks greener on the other side, but
Exactly.
there's that saying where I don't know if you've heard this before, where if everyone sits at the table and everyone puts their cards on the table of all their problems and their issues, uh, people wouldn't change cards with someone else. Like you kind of you want your own life compared to other people's problems. I guess is a better way of saying it.
100%.
All right, so I just want to touch on because I think this has to do with trading and business and anything in general, like mental strength, right? So I saw that you said you dealt with an injury. I think you got injured twice.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough mentally, man. You work so hard to get to where you are, and then you can't play because you're hurt. Talk to me about how that affects you mentally and how you get over that. Because I personally think like trading, it's easy to learn charts and patterns and all that stuff. For me, the hardest part is the mental part.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, you hit it right on the head. The mental part is the hardest thing, and I think, well, one, I didn't start trading. I didn't get into it until I got hurt basketball because I had a big knee injury, had this major surgery, and was in bed for 8 weeks. And I'd always been into like investing in crypto and seeing my money work for itself, but I didn't actively trade until I got hurt and kind of learned it by myself. And yeah, it was all charts, all that. Well, first, let me. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Let me answer the question of mental fortitude and whatnot. That probably was the hardest thing I had dealt with, especially with basketball stuff, up until that point in my life. And it's easy to kind of be like, oh shoot, I'm never gonna play in the NBA, and my career's kind of ruined because I was projected lottery pick up until that point, and then once I got hurt twice back to back, then didn't go drafted. It was just like I could have easily given up there and just gone and done something else. My brother was already in the NBA. I guess I could have begged to work for him. I don't know, but I still had dreams and I felt like I still had a chance to make it. And I kind of just had to remind myself that life's not all about basketball. Because up until that point, that was all my dream, all my goal was just to make it to the NBA, and I knew I'd be happy. But that wasn't looking as sure as it was a few months prior. So I guess I just kind of reminded myself life's so much more. I can learn more things. I can do more stuff. And that's kind of when trading became a new hobby. And I started learning more about that. So, how much fun that was while simultaneously working to come back in basketball. So, I guess that was kind of the first moment where I guess you could say I was rock bottom, but it kind of taught me a new way of thinking about things, and just keep pushing forward, keep moving forward. Easier said than done, sure. But I think if you can master that, you can really do anything. And to go into trading, like you said, you can learn all the charts and whatnot. That's super easy. It's more about managing mentally how you do with these charts and how you do with these plays. That's what separates the people that blow up their accounts from the millionaires in this business.
All right, so let's dive into that a little bit because from my experience, and I've always been more of an investor. I just got into trading more, I would say, in the last year.
Okay.
And to me, like hands down, that is by far the most difficult aspect in a lot of ways. Like, for example, a lot of people are not, I don't think most people are cut out for this, to be honest with you. I tell my friends, like, you've got to be like a little sick in the head to be, to be like day
Yeah.
trading options because you have to be able to like look at your account drop 60% and still have like a belief that your play is going to play out. Um, Even if you're up a lot, not letting that get to you and get your ego pumped up. There's just so many ways that it affects you. And I'm just curious, do you have any advice on that? Like from what you've learned, how do you keep like a rational, calm mind, even when things are moving against you or they're in your favor?
Yeah, I like what you said. You have to kind of be sick in the head to be successful at it. A lot of people have reached out to me, like friends and family, talking about let me get into it, let me get into it. But I kind of warn them, like, especially at first, you might lose some money, but it's always about bouncing back and just learning from it. I think experience is the biggest teacher for me because at first, I mean, not that I was putting in that much money, but I blew my account like 5 times in the beginning, and then just slowly learned from it, got better with the risk management, all that jazz, and yeah, I think I just have it. This is gonna sound bad, and I don't recommend like you just take it at face value. But there's a deeper meaning behind it. I kind of just started looking at money differently when it was in my trading account. I almost treated it like a video game where uh, just not panicking too much if I lost some, almost looking at it just like numbers on a screen, which it is in a sense, and wasn't freaking out. I only put in money what I was okay with losing, and just played by my rules, wrote down my rules every day and stuck to them. And I think if you just stick to your rules, and it's so easy to say that and then go out and YOLO your whole account on Tesla when you see everyone else making millions off it. But if you can just do that, man, I think it's just habit by habit, day by day, following your habits. You'll be okay. It's just learning how to follow your own rules is the hardest thing about it.
I actually think that's such a great way of looking at it. I feel like lately I look at it the same way where I've kind of detached from the money and it's just like numbers on a screen, right? And I feel like
Yeah,
once you get to that, when you get to that point, it's more likely that you'll be successful because now you're not like emotionally invested in the roller coaster ride. Um,
exactly. The
but I've
biggest, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. That's okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like the biggest mistake I had made in the past was okay, I'm doing great when I'm making money, but then if my account's down 30% and then I cut losses, like, oh, I gotta make it back. Let me put 50% of my account into this play. And that's when the snowball of losses starts rolling. I think that's the most dangerous thing. So it's easy to follow your rules when you're making money. Okay, I'll take profit at 30%. I'll cut losses at 10%. But then when you take a big position and it's down 20% overnight, like what you said, options are just so volatile. That's when your rules get tempted to break.
Yeah, I feel like with options specifically, like that's normal. Like 20, 30% moves is
Yeah,
normal. So you have to be comfortable with that. Otherwise, you shouldn't play it.
exactly.
But I actually think it's good to lose money in the beginning, to be honest with you, because I've had experiences with trading where I've made like tons of like unbelievable amounts of money in one trade. And then I realize personally that affects me in a negative way where I think I get like more aggressive afterwards and I lose a lot after that. So
Yeah.
like keeping that level headedness is really difficult. It's easy to talk about it, but it's not that easy to do it.
I remember like my very first okay, so I had started a Robinhood account in the beginning and was just doing equity, buying and selling stocks. I think it was Luckin Coffee back in the day, if you remember that stock. But
Yeah.
um then I looked in the settings and enabled options. I was like, oh, what is this? Started messing around with it. YOLO'd everything, which was like $2,000 into Apple calls for their event of unveiling a new iPhone or whatever. It went up to like 10K the next day. Then I put all 10K into Roku. That went to 34,000, and I was just like on top of the world that night. And I was only 18 years old, so I was, that's a lot of money for that at that age. Um, and then I just kept, YOLOing my whole account to each thing, and then overnight, I think I forget what stock. It was Roku again. I got back into Roku. They had like a share offering, and then lost my whole position and vowed never to trade again. But that loss kind of just left like a scar in me that never I like refuse to do that now. And I think like you said, losing so early on, although that was a lot of money, even if it's $100, you lose all your money, that just changes the way you think. Granted, I had to do it 4 or 5 times and before I got the hang of this trading thing, but I think yeah, mentally it's just you learn a new thing every time you lose money.
You had to do it 4 or 5 times for it to really like burn in and sink in. So,
Yeah. Well, I wasn't yellowing my account after that, but I was slowly but surely losing my money.
I mean, I think that's just the uncomfortable truth. Like people think you're just going to put it in and it's going to be 100x in a week. You're most likely going to lose it and you'll learn. And if you really want to get good at it and make something out of it, you'll stick with it. And over time, you get good enough to be consistently profitable. That's
For
why
sure.
I'm sure you've seen the stats where like 90% of traders fail. I think because they give up within like the first couple months. They lose their money and they're out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's I was just talking to somebody about that today. It's that statistic is a little misleading, I feel like, because so many people quit after they lose a little bit of money. They just get freaked out and just go hands down. So people that stick it out, I think, are the ones that well obviously are doing pretty well.
So I actually first found you in these Discord groups. Like I was in the Ace Ventures group. I know you're in another group that I got into, the Financial Cloud one.
Yeah.
I just not that active in that one yet. I'm more active in following the Ace Ventures and all the guys in there. How do like these groups find you? How do they know that you're good at trading and recruit you? How does that happen?
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you how it all happened. It was just like over the course of a year. Yeah, it was wild. So it was initially Thomas Watts. He is one of the traders, but he doesn't really talk as much anymore. He followed me on Instagram for basketball and saw that I had posted something like retweeted something financially, and he asked me about it, and then I joined one of his groups. At the time, I wasn't the greatest trader, but I just kept learning, and then me and Tommy met up and won, and then I got invited into Ace's group, and then I made my own Discord, and then now I just co-founded the Financial Cloud, and I'm in that one now. So it was kind of wild how it all happened, but I'm really thankful for it because Ace's Ventures for sure helped me kind of jumpstart my own following, and I'm not as active in that either today, but we're all friends now. It's just a community of traders. I love it.
I mean, it's kind of and I guess this requires faith or believing in fate or something, but it's just funny how like you got into trading because of your injury, right?
Right.
And I've had similar experiences too, where like something bad happens and you're depressed, and through time you realize that hey, not that you're grateful for being injured, for example, but because of that, other things come up, and who knows, you might become like a really successful, multi-billion-dollar trader, and it all happened because you were laying in bed for 8 weeks, right? You never know.
It really is crazy. I'm a firm believer that there's good that comes out of all bad situations, and I think I've not that I would go back and hope that I re-tear my knee up not once but twice, but I think there I'm really thankful for how everything's turned out, not only with basketball, but like you said, with trading, with my perspective on life in general, like not putting all my stock per se into basketball. Yeah, it really is wild how all that worked out.
So it sounds, and I'm sure you see this too, where like everybody and their mother and their aunt and their neighbor, they're all getting into trading right now, which um, I'm not sure what that says about where things are going.
Right.
But what is your advice for people that are beginning? Like, should they get into options? Should they stay away? What are some rules that you found that work? Like, what's general advice for people that are just getting started?
What I find, especially with people that ask me questions and ask for help, is that too many people are getting in too early without enough knowledge. Because when you look at trading, you think of a get rich quick scheme, which it can be. But as we discussed earlier, you usually end up losing all the money that you gain because you just get more aggressive. Uh, but yeah, I would say people are getting in too quick without learning the fundamentals, learning stuff, learning how to manage their own positions. I mean, I see people in the Aces group that just put everything into what he says, don't even they just keep asking like when do I get out, when do I get out, not knowing how to manage their own positions, and that's just for options. I think equity is a whole nother monster, but I think just educate yourself. Paper trade is iffy because that's not real money. The psychology of it, like we said, is the biggest thing. And then just slowly scale into it, see how you do with it. Don't quit just because you lose money. I think losing money is the biggest teacher, as we discussed. And yeah, just surround yourself by other good traders like I have. I wouldn't be half the trader I am today without consulting and bouncing ideas off other people. Yeah, man, that's really just a few bits and pieces of advice I give.
So, like most other things, invest in learning. But you've gotten obviously pretty good after all the learnings that you did. I saw a post recently that I'll link to in the show notes where I think it was like 50,000 to 200,000 in 3 days, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
was the story behind that? That's crazy.
yeah, man. I like to do that. So I have a few main accounts like on Thinkorswim, and I have one with Charles Schwab and whatnot, where those are my more safe trades per se. But Robinhood's just my have fun account where I try to grow it as quickly as possible. So a few times, I mean, once I turned 5K into 100K off our earnings play on Robinhood, I took out most of that and just traded with a little bit of account. Got that up to 50,000 recently, and then 50,000 and 200,000 in a few days. I forget what trade. I think that was on Tesla, Neo, and a few other trades that were just wild. But yeah, man, I think I go against a lot of the typical rules of like safe traders with that account because I just try to grow it as quickly as possible. And obviously, I'm not doing this as my main source of income. It's more of a side gig where I try to. It's like my fun money. If I do good, I withdraw it and put it either in savings or bless myself with something. But yeah, man,
If not, you're depressed.
yeah, exactly.
So, are you like net up from all those risky plays in Robinhood? Like you said, you take some out. So overall, do you think you've been up or down?
Oh, 100% up. I don't play with too much. Like once I get it up there, I withdraw it all, restart with a few thousand.
So how do you? I've noticed like for example, recently I was in Neo, and I think you were heavy in Neo, and I saw, if I remember correctly, you tweeted that you were holding it for after Neo Day,
Yeah.
right? Is that true? What gives you that confidence? Because from my experience, I got burned with events like either earnings or like Tesla Day, Battery Day, whatever kind of day. I got ingrained in me to sell before the event. So like, what
Yeah.
gave you that? It worked out really well. Neo shot up afterwards. Like, but what gave you that confidence to stick with it while everyone else is like, "No, play it safe and get out."
Right. I mean, I've also gotten burned. I remember I played Tesla Battery Day and I got screwed, but
To be fair,
uh,
that's Elon's fault. You
that
shouldn't have
is
tweeted.
Elon's fault. I also got burned on when Tesla was about to unveil the Cybertruck. I thought they were just gonna have a sick design, and then the window cracked. I was just depressed that night. But yeah, so I've gotten burned on those too actually in the past. But with the Neo play, I just saw that it had broken all time highs. It was soaring. Everybody had good sentiment on it. Got a couple upgrades, and just with I did some research on their technology and what they had to offer. They were unveiling a new sedan, and I was just like, man, they're bound to partner with somebody. I knew that for sure, just with all their new technology coming out. And I don't know, man. I mean, it's always risky to hold for events, but I was pretty darn sure, or else I wouldn't have tweeted because I would have gotten a lot of hate if it hadn't worked out. But uh, I was just really sure about Neo, man.
That's the downside of putting this stuff publicly is when you're wrong,
Yeah,
people make sure you know that you're wrong.
I know. That's the one thing. That's why I don't do anything for like I don't accept Venmo tips. I don't have anything paid right now for me or one-on-one tutor sessions because I'm just like, one, I'm doing this for fun in my free time. I don't want to spend too much time tutoring individuals, and also, if I take their money and then later lose their money, they're gonna be just pissed and blackmail me or not blackmail me, blacklist me and never trade off me again.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if I'm a fan of all these like alerts and like calling out entries because I feel like with my friends, I could give them a great play, like a great
Yeah,
stock, but it's not enough. You have to know how to follow it. You have to know when the plan is no longer in play, when the pattern broke, when to get out, how to get out, scaling in, scaling out.
right.
It's not as simple as here's an alert and just go do it.
Yeah, I mean that, and then also if you do that, it encourages mindless sheep. Not to call traders sheep or anything, but it kind of is when they just take an entry, buy that expiration date, buy that strike, and bombard you with when do I get out, when do I get out, instead of giving them trade ideas and then not even telling them when you get out usually, and let them kind of fare for themselves because that's the only way they learn is if they do things themselves. So that's I'm also with you on that boat.
So just on Neo, I feel like you said you researched their technology. I like their business model too. Like they sell the cars for a lot cheaper and then they lease the batteries out.
Yeah,
So I'm like, oh, that's different. And even though it's so hyped up, I feel like that might be a great long term play. If like it doesn't have to be anything like Tesla, like a tenth of Tesla would be a great long term investment for if Neo pulls through.
no, I agree with you. I've been adding shares since it was like $5, and that wasn't too long ago. Actually, it's just been real how quickly it came up to this price level. But I still like it. Like you said, it's not it's not just following Tesla's or trying to be a better Tesla. It's like changing it up a bit, doing its own thing. It's in China, which is a huge EV market, and I mean it's doing really well. You see their sales year over year and whatnot. All these models, and then the chart itself is just gorgeous when we played the breakout. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And you see how the stock market is the last year or so. People find a stock that runs and then just throw all their money into it, and you see these crazy momentum plays. So um,
Yeah, it
it's
doesn't
not.
have to make sense. Like people say, oh, it's overvalued. I mean, Tesla's
Yeah,
been
it doesn't
overvalued
have
for
to
three
make
years,
sense.
man.
Exactly. So we're not in the olden days where stocks have to follow these, principles to the T. It's things that have been really weird.
So let me ask you because, like I said before, I got into trading. I was really more of a long term investor, um, and I've always heard, hey, you can't get anything out of technical charts. It doesn't tell you anything. It's a bunch of hoopla. What do you say to people that still think that like the chart is just a chart? Like, well, that doesn't tell you anything. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's just people being lazy and not looking up the facts or learning it themselves. I mean, there's plenty of ways you can trade that are profitable. I'm not denying that. But to say that one doesn't work and the other is the only one that does work, I think is foolish. Obviously, charting does work because I wouldn't just have this lucky run for year on year because I'm doing pretty well myself and all I do is look at the charts. So and obviously take a couple YOLO calls that work out every once in a while. But
That brings up the average.
yeah, yeah, it brings up the average return. But no, I think charting's, I mean, that's how I learned. And I think that's how I teach all my people, like all my friends that want to learn. And yeah, I mean, like we said, nothing really follows anything exactly anymore because you see those momentum plays that don't follow charts that just go straight up parabolically. But for the most part, man, charts really do work. There's lots of ways to do it, hundreds of millions of ways to do it, I'm sure. But I stick to what I learned, and it's only a few things, only a few chart patterns I look for, but it really works for me.
So if it was, this is what I always wonder about, like algorithms and AI, and people build all these different tools, and everyone's looking for the same patterns, right? But it can't be that easy. If it always worked, if the patterns were, or they worked most of the time, everyone would make a ton of money. So, like, where's
Right.
the disconnect there? Does it always work, or how do you know when it won't work?
No, that's typically why. I mean, I've literally just tweeted at Thanos because he was like, "Yo, you should have gotten Fubo with me a few days ago," because it was gearing up, and I was like, I was waiting for the breakout. I was waiting for the breakout. And he was like, "Oh, you should have gotten in earlier." But for me personally, I wait for the chart to validate itself because, like you said, it's not 100% accurate, or I would never lose, but I do sometimes. So I try to wait for the breakout. Sometimes there's fake outs, but really, I like a chart. I see it break that trend line I have built up, and then I get in and hope for the best. Have my price targets there. If it goes red, I have a quick stop loss, but it's really not about being 100% right. It's about being 100% control of your emotions within the trade and being able to cut losses or being able to ride out those wins because the chart says a stock will get this high. And if it doesn't, you take profit there or cut losses. But yeah, I don't think it's really about being 100% right. It's just being it's managing those positions that you are right in.
So I saw when I woke up this morning, I saw you tweeted about Fubo,
Hmm.
and I'm like, all right, I'm talking to this guy later. Let me get in this play with him, and hopefully we got something nice to talk
Oh
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I got in the morning. So this is an example for people who are listening that haven't traded. I got in this morning. I waited for a slight pullback. It held its level. I think it was around 30. It was holding, so I jumped in. But I got out quickly once it got to like the mid 32s. I took my profits. It was really minor. But then I saw it pull back, and I'm like, all right, great. I made the right move. But then at the end of the day, it just tore off like a monster. I think it went up to like 38, 39. And then I'm like, oh my God, I should have stayed in. Jontay probably stayed in. He's made a ton of money. I scalped it for like a couple points.
Right. I mean, money's money, man. You can't complain if you're green. I think if that's your way of doing it, and you just want to secure the gains. That's great. For me, I'm a little more risky when I do these Robinhood trades, so I'm still in. You know me. I'm just waiting. I like the chart. I think can keep going higher. I saw it break through on the daily chart, and that's when I got in this morning. So it was a textbook trade, honestly.
So can you tell us a little bit about like what you look for? Like, how do you trade? What's your style? Do you scalp? Do you wait for breakout, get in, get out? Do you do options for longer term and swing it? How do you trade?
Honestly, I can't put myself in one category because I do a little bit of everything. With my schedule right now with the NBA, I like to day trade or scalp in the mornings before I go to practice, and then I'm out of all positions for the 3 hours I'm at the gym. I get home, look for better positions or better trades that have the patterns formed throughout the day. I either day trade or swing trade that afternoon, and then I'm in some longer term positions. But all of it comes down to technical analysis, looking for those charts. It's just a matter of what time frame I'm looking at. So I scalp sometimes, I day trade, I swing trade. I'm not very good with like the leaps because I get impatient just having my money sit there. But that's kind of I need to get better at that because a lot of money can be made there. So I think I'm just a technical analysis trader that looks at different time frames and does his best to help others make money with them.
Do you have any top picks now, whether they're short term plays, long term plays, anything that's like high on your radar?
I mean, Neo is definitely one of them. I think that'll be $100 within a few months. But like I said, I'm not good with those long swings. So I'm just day trading right now. I had a little bit of bad news right now because of the offering and then a downgrade. But that's high on watch. Fubo, obviously, because it just broke out. I think it'll have a really strong week. I think Planeteer, whatever, PLTR. That's also one that was a hot stock a few weeks ago that I think is making a little resurgence. And then obviously Tesla is always on the hot watch list just because of what it is. I mean, there's a ton of them. NVIDIA is going to be great, I think. I try not to overtrade by complicating things or having too many call outs, but there's always at least 10 stocks that are on my watch that I just set levels for. And if it breaks, I get in. If it doesn't, then I just sit on my money. So, but go ahead. Let me shout myself out. Follow me on Taytrays11 and I'll tell you when to get in.
Yeah, and I'll definitely link to that in the show notes for sure. I recommend people follow you, and
I'm
I'm
just
glad.
kidding.
No, no, it's true, and I'm glad that the names you mentioned are all on my list too. So
That's great.
I guess I'm on the right track. Let's see.
Yeah, man.
Um, what about crypto? Because you mentioned it earlier, and I think I read
Yeah.
in an article that you bought it a long time ago. Like, what price was it at when you first bought it? A Bitcoin?
Bitcoin I bought at 5,000, and that was like during the first little run, and then I sold pretty high up there, around 17,000, and I got back in around 6,000 or a year later, whatever. And I've just been holding that since, and obviously adding my position. And now that I'm in the NBA, I can add a little more funds to it. So my average price is a lot higher than that 6,000. But I keep adding whenever there's a dip. This past couple of days, I've been adding, and then I'm doing more research on the altcoins and getting into Ethereum, Litecoin. There's a bunch of them, man. I'm just trying to diversify my portfolio on that. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, just like the stock market. But the thing I like about crypto is that the mainstream is already in the stock market. I think as more and more people pile into crypto, that thing is just going to keep taking off. So I'm excited to see what the next couple of years look like.
Yeah, same. Now for crypto, are you like you said you bought Bitcoin, got out, got back in? Are you looking to trade it, or are you just kind of stacking it and holding it for long term?
Similarly to how I have a couple trading accounts for the stock market, I have a couple accounts for crypto. One that I trade on like actively, and then one that I just buy and hold. Coinbase I just buy and hold because the fees are atrocious, but I love the interface, kind of like Robinhood. And then Binance I do more trading on for the altcoins and whatnot because there's runners just like there is in the stock market, if not
Yeah,
more. So there's definitely opportunity, but I think you risk losing a lot of money if you don't just buy Bitcoin and hold.
yeah, same here. I just keep. I have not sold. I actually at the beginning of 2020, I sold all my other coins, other altcoins, and just put it all into Bitcoin. Uh,
Man, so you got in the beginning of 2020. That means you're doing very well.
that was liquidating my other stuff and going into Bitcoin, but I had
Yeah,
Bitcoin from years ago, so I just kind of keep stacking. I believe in the long term potential, especially like, I don't know if you read Ray Dalio's work
yeah,
on. So he recently wrote about looking at previous periods of high inflation and what happened,
right.
and literally in every single example in history, like back to the 1600s, it's the same thing. Things like gold or like things that you can't manipulate the supply of go up
Yeah,
in price by a lot. And I feel like with the money printing going on, the currency devaluation, and all these other factors at play, Bitcoin should be a home run. Like I can't think of anything better to put your money into for long term than that, personally.
that's what I'm saying, man. The only thing that can hold it back is too many regulations and whatnot. But even with that, I think people will start to get into it just with the inflating dollar and then tensions everywhere. So I'm with you, man. I wouldn't be surprised. Tay Trey's 11 prediction is 100,000 in 2021 for Bitcoin. We'll see if it
Oh,
works out.
I'm with there. I'm with you on that one for sure. Um, so I guess if I step back, you started trading when you were younger, like before you were in the NBA. Where did you make your money to invest? Like that's another thing people struggle with. That I want to trade, I want to invest, but I don't have money. So as a
Right.
young guy, where did you make your money to put into Bitcoin and trade early on?
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I'm really into technology stuff, and I had an iPhone 4 back in the day and a little computer, and broke it, but learned how to fix it myself. So then I made my own little iPhone repair shop in my parents' basement, and I'd have all these people coming by, asking me to swap glass backs or customize it. I do all that stuff. So that's how I made my money as a kid, and then had a few $1,000s stored up. I worked at a snow cone store or snow cone stand, made some money from that. And then once I was at Mizzou for basketball, that's when I tore my knee up. I got $2,000 a month stipend, and I was living at home at the time because of my knee, so I had like virtually no expenses. I'd just take all that and put it into crypto. So I just had a lot of, not a lot, but I had a good little pool of money saved up that I could get into and start trading. I didn't put it all in at once because I was scared I would lose it, which I ended up doing. But yeah, I had a good little starting point. I think there's lots of ways to make money. It's not just go to your 9 to 5. There's lots of side hustles you can do to fund those trading accounts.
That story of a repair shop in seventh grade or whatever age you were, that's awesome. That's like an
Yeah,
entrepreneur born and bred from the beginning. And like I
man.
said, for the listeners of the show too. Like people that listen to the show feel different. They're doing weird things that their friends aren't doing, and like you fixing phones. I'm sure you were the only one in your school doing that. Is there anything else that you did as a side hustle, or any other stories like that growing up?
Not really. I mean, I walked the neighborhood dogs for the cash. I babysitted. I did lots of little gigs, but my main one was that repair store. Just like like you said, I was the only one doing it. I remember in high school, my backpack, instead of like being filled with books, I just put a bunch of iPhone backs in it, and then like go to the bathroom and customize the kids' phones for $20 and take that back home. So yeah, man, I've been hustling since a kid. I just like to see my money grow. And then once I found crypto and seeing my money be able to grow like digitally, not just me going out and hustling myself, that's kind of when my interest peaked with the whole trading thing.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? I was just talking to family recently. Like, I work my whole life to try to save money, do the right thing, put a certain percentage of your money in the bank account. But like in the last year, just by putting it into crypto, I've made way more money, like much easier than hustling and working my whole life. So I'm not trying to like downplay hustling because you need that initial cash.
Yeah,
But to me, it's just bonkers how you make a lot of your money with like minimal effort if you just make the right decision.
that's what I'm saying, man. I think obviously each situation is unique for every person, but if you can get that initial capital and make your money work for you, that's really the dream, the American dream, in my opinion. Because working 9 to 5 till you're 65 is just not ideal to me. I that was like my a nightmare for me as a kid. I just wanted to go be able to have freedom to live life and go travel, do whatever. And I think I kind of took those steps as a kid to make that happen. So obviously basketball worked out for me as well. But I think even without that, I laid the foundation at a young age. Obviously for me, it was really young, but even if you're 20, 30, even 40, I mean, that's still pretty young. So you can do stuff to free up your older years for sure.
Yeah, and then you don't need like $500,000. Like you mentioned, a
No,
couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. That's really all you need to get going. And people
exactly.
are so focused on like trying to make a ton of money. You just got to do the best with what you have, right? And build from
Exactly.
there. All right, so I want to respect your time. So I know you want to talk about real estate. Let's riff on that for a little bit. Like, what are you looking to do? You said you wanted to diversify and get into real estate. What's your mindset at with that?
I mean, just like anything for me, I want to find ways to make my money grow by itself and not me sitting and watch or sitting going out and doing it myself. So with real estate, I've just learned a lot of people that are very successful with it. And yeah, I'm good at trading and I have stuff in crypto and I'm making a good salary, but I want to be able to open up more streams of income because I think that's where real wealth is when you have the passive income where you aren't doing anything or people are working for you. And not that I'm just trying to build a figure in my bank account because I think life's much more than just numbers on a screen, but I just want freedom. And I think real estate's another avenue to get that. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Fix and flip, I feel like is a little time consuming, and there's lots that can go wrong with that. I think rental properties is probably what I'm leaning towards. I just got to learn more, get my real estate license and stuff, and find good properties to get. And I'm a busy guy right now with the season going on, but off season I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna hit the books, and I'm gonna try to get a few properties under my belt.
Yeah, I've done fix and flips. I haven't done any this year because it's so competitive out there. Like I
Yeah.
don't know where you're located, but the real estate, like here in New York, New
Oh
Jersey, is
my
just
gosh. Yeah, that's probably
insane.
insane.
It's gotten like I've seen homes listed for 650, selling for 850 in the same day. Like it's bonkers
Oh
what's
my
going on.
gosh. Yeah, that's
So
insane. Memphis is very low key compared to New York. So if I was in New York, I'd probably be looking for another way to get passive income.
yeah, I was curious to hear like what you're thinking of doing because there's a lot like trading. There's a lot of different styles of real estate.
Yeah.
I was looking at Florida because something I learned recently is that they have no capital gains tax. So a lot of my friends that are real estate investors in New York, they sell their properties up here. They do a 1031 exchange to buy properties in Florida, and then they sell it there because there's no capital gains down there. So it's a way of avoiding massive tax.
Man, I'm taking notes right now. That's good info. That's all I was looking for. I tweeted the other day, real estate people DM me, and I got lot of good info, but nobody said that.
Okay, so my last two questions that I ask everyone at the end of the show. If I interviewed people around young Jontay and I'm like, hey, what'd you think of him as a young kid? Would people tell me, like, what would they tell me? Was there any hint of a future successful trader, business person, whatever, at that young age, or were you pretty normal?
I'd say I was pretty weird. and not just because I was hustling at a young age. Like that didn't happen until seventh, eighth grade, whatever. But I was really reserved as a kid, and I was homeschooled up until high school, so I didn't like have the biggest social life. I wasn't going out and hanging out with friends all the time. I wasn't like a weird homeschool kid or anything because I played basketball, so there was some social interaction. But I would just hit the books. I would read a lot. I would play with my siblings. But besides that, I was very, very shy. Just stayed in my room, read a ton. I think reading was probably the biggest thing that I realized not a lot of kids do or that like to do at a young age.
What'd you read? What kind of stuff?
All types of stuff. I mean, my family, I grew up in a Christian household. I'd read the Bible all the time. And I read a lot of novels, but I didn't start reading, like financial stuff until I got interested in that. And then I read a lot of self-help books too, even at a young age, just how to make friends and how to, I don't know, just how to be a better person, how to live a happier life. I just love books, and I prefer that over watching movies.
So I guess people wouldn't be surprised to hear that you're doing well now, because it sounds like you were investing time back then reading, even if it wasn't financial. You were focused on getting better.
Yeah, man. I think I always felt good about myself at the end of the night when I would read, when I would just better myself, like you said. But I love movies. I love video games, but I can't help but after I'm done with them, feel a little like, why did I just waste all that time doing that? You know?
I'm curious. You said you were shy, more reserved, and now you're really well spoken. You're in the public eye. Like you just came on a podcast without hesitation. You can speak the whole time. You don't seem shy anymore. How'd that change?
I don't know, man. I ask myself that often, actually. Like, when did I kind of flip that switch? I think basketball had a big deal to do with that. My brother was like always the biggest superstar growing up. I mean, he was like number one ranked eighth grader. So the public eye was always on him, and then consequentially me as well because I was always on the same team as him. So I would always do interviews talking about my brother, and I was in like a documentary of his where I had to talk a long time. So it's just little things you do that kind of make public speaking not as scary. So now I don't really mind it as much, but I think once I realized that I could be well spoken or I could do this thing pretty easily, that's kind of when I just opened the floodgates. And now I love doing podcasts. I love speaking, not just because I want to bring attention to myself, because it's just fun to have good conversations like this. I just enjoy it.
Yeah, no, same here. That's why I recently started this one. I had a different one that was like really focused in the event industry. Ended up being number one in the world for that industry.
Oh,
And I'm like, you know what? I really like this. You meet cool people. You have great conversations. So let me just start my own and focus on that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna be tuned in for sure. I really like how you do this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And the last question that I ask everybody, we talked about a lot of stuff in this conversation. Clearly, rich life isn't just about money, right? So you mentioned that earlier. So what is a rich life to you? Because people think it's bound to be rich. It's just about money, but it's not. So to you, what do you think is a rich life?
Dang, that's a deep question. I think each person will have a different answer to that. But for me personally, I think a rich life is being happy with loved ones, having freedom to do fun stuff with loved ones, and being happy with yourself and the person that you are. So I think, yeah, money is a vessel to be able to do a couple of those things. But for me personally, if I go to bed happy at the end of the day with who I am, who I'm with, and what I'm doing with them, then that's a rich life to me, honestly.
Awesome, man. That's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot of it, so hopefully people listening will learn some stuff too. And I'll include links to your Twitter and your Discord group and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. So, Jontay, thank you so much, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Man, thank you for having me. I'll talk to you later.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to leave a review. I may even give you a shout out and read yours out on the show. For any and all resources that we discussed, check out the show notes or head on over to boundtoberich.com. Until next time.